All right, welcome to another 2025 Dungeon Run tutorial video. In this one, I'm going to just go through all of the rules, my homebrew changes, some of the third-party stuff, the additional character options, and all the non-standard kind of content that I've added to the game. Explain them maybe in a little bit more detail and give you an explanation as to why I'm doing things that way. It's not just you know, uh, my tyrannical insanity or pulling stuff out of my butt. This I've run this particular campaign about 5 times already, so all of this stuff has been built up over that experience, um, and it makes a much more fun game. For the most part, when you take everything into account, you kind of look at all the options and stuff that you see. I do tend to run a pretty high power game, right? Characters here, if they do make it to the end, make it to level 20, will be equal to about like a level 25, I don't know, or 30 Dungeons and Dragons character of another, more traditional game. I've had parties in this dungeon that were, you know, level 10, 11, 12, easily capable of, blitzing right over anything in the regular monster manual of any CR. Um, that's just kind of the game I play. Now, it's not just that the players are overpowered and this is some like Doomslayer fantasy where you guys crush everything. I have additional monster books and monster building um, options, and you're going to see some more things filter into the game as you progress, because not everything that is in the game is in the game to start. So the story, the danger level, and the complexity all kind of blossoms as you go, and that works in tandem with all the player options. So I make a pretty high end, intense, complex game, but I give you the tools to deal with those things. And it's one of the primary reasons why I don't advertise this game as being beginner friendly, or particularly look, for people that have never played the game before or anything like that. I think it's all just a little bit much on the first run if you've never played it before to absorb all of this stuff in addition to learning how to play the basic game. This is really a good game for people that have been playing D&D like me since 5e dropped or from before then. Maybe you've grown a little bit bored, or you've lost some of that sense of excitement and sense of like experimentation and discovery. I try to inject a lot of that back into the game by giving you new stuff like new classes, new feats, new spells. So you can play around again. You can look for those cool combo powers and stuff. While at the same time, some of the standard kind of what I call YouTuber content, you get those YouTube videos say, hey, top 10 most broken spell combos or most class combinations and stuff. I work in a way to kind of reduce that. So, it's not just Wall of Force and Sickening Radiance in every single encounter. There's you gotta step back from what the established meta, for lack of a better term, is, but you can try out new things that maybe even work better than that. All right. Well, that's a basic overview. So let's get down. I'll go line by line and we'll kind of go over it. Section 1, 24 versus 2014. I'm going to stick with 24 as our basic rules set. So if there's a conflict like grappling or two-weapon fighting or whatever else, I'm just going to use the 24 rulings because it's new to me and I want to get some time under it, but also I genuinely think that they did a good job balancing most of that stuff, and the additions and changes were more positive than not. So, gonna give them the benefit of the doubt there, and that should be good going forward. Um, as far as players are concerned, you can still play a 2014 character. What that basically means is you're just going to be locked into 2014 feats, 2014 subclasses and class features. As far as magic items and spells go, I'm going to use the new version if there is a new version. You might still see some reference or tie into older versions of stuff just because my third party and whatever other content has not updated to 2024. So there could be a little bit of overlap there. But for the most part, just assume 2024 is the baseline. All right, so I'm going to go down the rules. Number one, don't use flanking. It's too easy. It invalidates most of the ways to get advantage, and it devolves a lot of the combat to a really similar, everybody clumps up a line and just don't need it. Passive checks, not a big fan of letting the game play itself, uh, or having to check, players' character sheets in the middle of the game. So I don't utilize passive checks too much. If you want to pump up your passive perception or whatever, it's not going to help you too much. So I wouldn't do that. I do use blind checks, which are an interesting system because I found it reduces a little bit of involuntary metagaming and makes players play more naturally. So a blind check is basically I have a button in API that can roll your skills for me. I will see what you roll. You won't. But they'll add all your bonuses, your advantages, whatever you have. So, like, say you want to enter a room and roll stealth. I roll it and I see it because a character or a player will say, okay, I want to roll stealth here to sneak by these monsters. They roll their dice, it comes up a 4, and they know, well, they're going to see me, so screw it. Let's just throw that fireball. Or if you're talking to an NPC, okay, I want to insight check what he just said. You roll a 5, I tell you, oh, he seems honest, and you go, but does he though? I rolled a 5. So rolling those checks blindly and making the characters or the players kind of play off of their character information rather than the meta information of what the dice landed on tends to provide a little bit more engaging and immersive gameplay. So I'm a big fan of blind checks. Ammo and encumbrance, mostly hand waved, as long as you're not trying to do something obnoxious like carry 700 barrels of black powder or 10 different suits of armor or anything insane like that. Don't really need to micromanage those kinds of resources. It's not that kind of game. You're going to go into the dungeon, do your little dungeon run, and then come back out to camp, and you don't have to worry about things like your water skins and your rations. You're not going to be out in the wilderness for all that long. So tight inventory checking is not necessary. XP table. So I don't know if this server's even unlocked for you guys, but I will go ahead and pull it up because there is a lot of stuff in the game here that you guys don't have access to. Yeah, okay. So there's this XP floor calculator. This is how XP is given. It's based off the floor of the dungeon that you conquer, not the monsters that you kill or milestone XP or anything else. So when you start the game, you're going to have 1000 XP, which is a little more than level 3, and 500 gold. Okay, and then after you beat your first dungeon floor, you're going to get 2350, which is going to leave you just short of level 4, and 500 more gold, and then 1700, which will get you level 4. You get to level 5 right around floor 5. But there are systems in the game as well for getting more XP than this. Like you can sometimes double or triple your XP based on what you do. Like the bonus boss on each floor, if you kill the bonus boss, you get double XP for the floor. So if you're at 4, you really want to get to 5. You can take on the bonus boss instead of having to wait to floor 5. So this isn't set in stone with what your character level is going to be. It's kind of based off how hard you want to push and how much challenge you want to take on. Now, when we're not doing dungeon runs and we're doing like overland stuff, you're doing the campaign, faction quests, role play stuff. I typically will do a mixture of like time and difficulty, and I'll base it off of whatever the XP you earned last time you were in the dungeon. So let's say after floor 4, you want to get out, go up to the surface world, do some questing. Maybe there's not a lot of fighting involved because I try to keep the fighting contained to the dungeon just to give you that excuse me, variance of content, right? You don't want to just be hacking away all the time. But anyway, it might still be a mission in terms of, you know, social encounters or puzzle solving or discovery, whatever else, that will be in line with that level of difficulty that the combat would have been if you were just going to the dungeon and hacking away. So I kind of justify keeping that XP level similar to where you were. So anyway, yeah, that's how you're gonna level up. So do track your XP. It's not milestone. I don't just say, okay, everybody, you're level 4 today. You need to count your XP on your sheet, but there's pretty easy way to do that, so no big deal. Permanent magic item crafting, as in the DMG or I think it was Xanathar's guide, we're not using. There is an alternate crafting system that is not part of the game right away. Like I said, some of the stuff is locked. There's kind of you can consider it that there's like a tutorial or introduction or prelude, I guess, to the game. There's a handful of missions and some content you kind of have to get through, and then the game opens up and the bigger picture is revealed, and you get all these extra options and the factions come into play and stuff happens. So crafting is in the game. You can craft magic items. You can even craft custom magic items that aren't in any book. You can just kind of design your own. But it's not what's in any of the books, and that will be revealed when you get to it. Diagonal movement rules, don't use it because I'm not calculating that. I'm lazy. So same thing for height, um, the z-axis, whatever else. I just kind of measure everything in a straight line using the ruler tool, and we eyeball things, and it works well enough. Feats, contested rolls, yeah. So if you do like an insight check versus somebody's deception check, an NPC, and you tie, I don't go off whoever has the bigger bonus or the bigger ability score, which is the traditional way to do it. I just do a reroll. It's a little bit faster and also adds some like tension to the game. It's like tying in rock paper scissors. You gotta amp it up and go one more time. Feats are enabled. Obviously, there's firearms in the game. There's a handful of firearm-centric classes in Tome of Heroes, like the Buccaneer. There's a Gunslinger Ranger, stuff like that. It's just black powder era. There's no, machine guns, revolvers, anything like that. It's single shot, flintlock, caliber stuff. Everybody can use it if you have crossbow proficiency. You can use pistol or musket. I'm going to use the Tome of Heroes versions. So if you type in musket to roll 20, it'll pop up the DMG version and the Tome of Heroes version. Use the Tome of Heroes version. The only thing is they use an explosion system. They call it a burst, gunpowder burst. So if a pistol's a D6 weapon, if you roll 6 on that, it bursts and you roll another D6. It's kind of like a critical hit without critically hitting mechanic. What I do to balance it out is if you're not playing one of those specific gunpowder-centric classes, I disable that feature. So you can still use guns like they were just regular ranged weapons, but you don't have that extra built-in kind of oomph, and they're just basically loud crossbows. But it's still fun if you want to be a swashbuckling pirate or a steampunk gunslinger, or you have some kind of different archetype in mind that makes big loud bangs and puts gun smoke everywhere. I think that's a cool fantasy, and feel free to build a character like that. Hitting cover. So cover gives you a bonus to AC, 2 or 5, depending on what it is. So if you're behind cover, somebody shoots you with a gun or a cannonball or a firebolt or whatever, the armor bonus the cover gives you makes the attack miss, but the attack was good enough to hit you if that cover wasn't there. So like you have 17 armor class, guy rolls 17 to hit, but you're behind cover. So your armor class is 22 if it's full cover. That firebolt or bullet or arrow or whatever is going to hit the cover. And if it was a big enough attack, like a boulder from a giant, it could destroy that cover. If you're using illusionary cover, right, like minor illusion, that basically gives you concealment. It'll offer disadvantage on the attacker, but if they hit your armor class, it's going to hit you because something that's not physically there can actually protect you from a projectile, if that makes sense. And also works the same if you're a halfling hiding behind your allies. If it would have hit your armor class, but it didn't because you were hiding behind somebody, it hits the person you were hiding behind. So be careful when hiding behind your allies. But coincidentally, if you hide behind enemies, you can make them shoot each other, which is, fun. Critical fumbles are probably the worst homebrew rule in D&D. I don't use them, and I don't play in any games you do. They're just terrible. I don't like them at all. uh, Auto success and failure on skill checks and saving throws isn't a thing, never has been. Some people misunderstand that. You can fail on a 20 and pass on a 1 on a saving throw. So sometimes your dice just can't save you. All right, now let's get into the spicy stuff, the actual homebrew adjustments, stuff that I have made up and injected into the game. Loophole rule, that's number one, first and foremost. I am adding a ton of new stuff in the game. Some of it has been play tested a bunch. Some of it I've used over 5 campaigns. Some of it's new for this campaign. None of it really has been combined or tested out with the 2024 rules because this is the first game I'm playing with it. So I reserve the right at any time to go, that's really not how I was planning on that to go. If you're just steamrolling through every encounter, if nothing can touch you, if you found some, instant death combo or whatever, infinite spell slots, good for you, I guess, for figuring that out. But I'm not going to let it stand. So I wouldn't build your character looking for kind of cheesy YouTube loopholes where you can make an unbeatable character right out of the gate. I have no problem with you being powerful, but generally speaking, like the monsters always have to have a chance. Everything has got to be determined by dice rolls. If you don't have a chance to fail, then succeeding isn't really any fun. So that's kind of my basic philosophy with that. And you can read the whole big paragraph if you want. All right. Now the more specific rules. The Saul rule. You can't be invisible and fly at the same time for the aforementioned Saul character in like the first dungeon crawl game. He had like the ring of invisibility and winged boots and a ranged weapon, and I think for like 10 or 11 floors in a row, he didn't take a single point of damage. Which is, smart, good tactical playing. Nothing wrong with that. But being invisible, flying with a ranged weapon neutralizes like 90 to 95% of all monsters in the game. There's not much stuff that has ranged attacks and true sight, or anything that can outrange a longbow or a musket. So it's like it kind of ties into rule one, even though it's not breaking the rules or a loophole of any kind. It's just so powerful that it makes balancing or making interesting, challenging encounters and stuff trivial. So you can totally fly and you can totally be invisible. You just can't do both at the same time. If you activate one, it deactivates the other. All right, the Lysandra rule. One artificer that was so smart it was insane because there is a system, for finding treasure. It was a little different back then. I think I didn't have as many limits or as tight a constraint on the level limits and stuff like that. So like early level characters were really able to get crazy powerful magic items if they were able to build up the currency. So she was just buying that the Tome of Intellect, I think it is, over and over again, right? Just every couple levels she would have enough money and she'd buy another one. And her intelligence got up to 36 and with Flash Genius, and she was using a musket to attack with intelligence, never missed unless she rolled a 1, and she'd use, Flash Genius like 16 times per short rest to add 16 to everybody's stuff. It was a lot. So I don't mind you guys pushing the limits, and there's still all that stuff in the game to do so, but we're going to raise your new limit to 30 instead of unlimited. Close enough movement rule. I kind of eyeball movement when it comes to tactical grid-based combat. Like you walk into a room, you're on one end, the wolves are on the other end. When the first turn comes up, the wolves will just run up to you, start biting you, and you can run up to them, start smacking them if you're a melee character. I don't, you know, I don't take it to the ridiculous extreme. If somebody's 400 feet away or 200 feet away, you can't just I'll run over here. But if they're 35, 40, 45 feet away, don't worry about it. It's fine. Um, Now, if you build a monk or a rogue, or you want to use like the push property and sentinel and all that stuff, and movement speed really matters to you because you kind of built around it, then you know I can enforce it a little more strictly, or you can eyeball a little looser than everybody else. Like if you're a monk with 50 movement speed, when I say okay, close enough for you is like 70 feet. You can push it. I'll still give you that feeling of being faster than everybody else without necessarily having to micromanage every square. So it helps speed up the game, helps you do more cool things instead of wasting your turn. Oh man, I'm 5 feet too slow to go get to where I want to go and do the thing I wanted to do, so I guess I'll just dodge. Nah, screw that. Go ahead. Go do what you want to do. It's cool. Um, don't roll dice without prompting. This is a thing that people do in Murder. I roll stealth, walk into a room, they just throw their, okay, cool, I got a 23. I guess I'm invisible. Well, not necessarily. Or can I want to perception this or insight this or investigate this. I'll let you know. Mainly because the blind checks thing I talked about before. There's some dice roll I don't want you as a player to see, so I will roll them for you basically, and then give you the information that you're supposed to get, and you can make your decisions based off that information rather than ooh, I got a 20 in the dice, um, which is good. Armor strength roll and our magic armor change, these are kind of combined, and I did it for the same reason. Um, if you don't have the strength to wear a piece of armor, you lose proficiency in the armor instead of just slowing down. A lot of times you could be a wizard or whatever, smack on that full plate, wouldn't matter. Okay, I'm a little slower, but who cares? I'm a wizard. I can still misty step everywhere. No big deal. Now you lose proficiency, which means you have a bunch of disadvantages. Can't cast spells. It's pretty much impossible to wear armor you're not proficient with. And magic armor change. If you find magic armor that's just the basic +1, +2, +3, and it's not studded leather, half plate, or plate, it ignores stealth disadvantage and the strength requirement. And the reason I did this is because it kind of sucks to open up a treasure chest or get a roll, random loot, and you find +1 chainmail, because effectively +1 chainmail sucks. Yes, it's a magic item and has rarity and a value, but it's just 17 AC, right? Like you can get that for 200 gold with splint, and it's the same proficiency. Taking away the stealth and strength properties means that like an artificer with 14 strength will never be able to wear plate. You just can't do it. So this makes that suboptimal kind of armors. Like if he found +1 chainmail, that'd be pretty good roll for a artificer that lacked the strength to wear plate, because now he's still increasing his protection with magic armor. So it kind of boosts up some of the less attractive armors and gives them a little bit more value, and diversifies character builds a little bit, so not every single character is walking around with plate and a shield at like level 2, which is what typically happens. Scrolls, number 9. Everybody can use scrolls. You don't have to roll any arcana or anything. You find a scroll, just use a scroll. As long as it's a cantrip, level 1 or level 2 scroll. Anything level 3 or above, you have to do the typical spellcaster arcana check for like a spell they don't know. But this applies to everybody. So you could be a fighter with really good arcana and sling spells around with your scrolls all day. And that's just, again, gives a little bit more versatility and value to some of the treasure you find, because scrolls come up a lot in the random treasure. So it's more fun to have more people able to use them than just the people who already have it on their spell list. That's a little boring. treasure hunting. So this goes in line with the traps. You'll see it when you play the dungeon. But basically, you get a system where you walk into a room, and let's say I say there's 4 statues in here. There's 4 magical-looking statues. They have an aura of magic around them, but they're made of solid gold. And you go, ooh, what's going on with these? So all the players, at their own behest, can go to investigate these statues. And there's a special macro that you roll that ties into your investigation if it's physical, mechanical, whatever, or arcana if it's magical. And you will check out that thing. And it will decide, like not me, I don't decide, okay, there's 4 chests in this room and this one's trapped and this one's trapped and the other 2 are okay. The results of your roll kind of do. So, somebody could check one statue, roll really well, and they'll find really powerful treasure. Somebody else rolls like a 2 and they spring a deadly trap. This makes it a little dynamic, cuts down on the prep time that I have to do, and also allows me to introduce traps in a non-traditional way. So you still have that dungeon crawl feel of, traps all over the place without the like walking around with a 10-foot pole or dropping everything with your mage hand. Slow plotting gameplay of a normal trap dungeon. But long story short, if you want to be good at finding treasure, you want to find more loot, look into your arcana and investigation skills. That'll help you out. 11, same kind of thing. It ties into 10 and 12. They all tie together. This is kind of my trap section. If you do investigate a statue and you roll low on your treasure troll check, and I say there's a trap there, you can't. Oh crap, rogue, come here, disarm this for me. Nope, it's your trap. You found it. You have to deal with it. In the table, the list for the treasure check macro has stuff like you find a trap and you can choose to walk away. So in that case, you can be like, oh, this looks deadly. I'm just going to walk away and not risk it. But you still can't turn around and have the rogue come and disarm it for you. The rogue can deal with the trap that he finds. If you don't want to deal with it, you don't want to risk it, you just stay away. Mostly that's how I use traps. There's not door traps, floor traps. Walking around, you fall in a pit, you get shot with darts just because fuck you. All my traps that I use are either part of puzzles or tied into the story somehow, or they're optional. Like it's just for extra loot, for shortcuts, secret passages, stuff like that. You don't have to deal with traps if you don't want to, for like 99% of cases. So I kind of force everybody to, if they do deal with one, if they do choose to deal with one, they have to make the saving throws and the disarm checks and all that on their own. You can't just ask the rogue to do everything for you, basically. Gavin rule, you'll find out about that later. Death saves or saving throws, so blast ring of protection, paladin notice, whatever else, anything that pumps up your saving throws will add up to your death saves, and I do it so if you roll over 20 or you get up with a hit point, the normal rule is you have to roll a natural 20. So this means bouncing back from 0 is a little more possible, and if you build a punching buddy, like look into the pugilist from the Tome of Heroes, and some of the new feats are on death saves. I won't give away the build entirely, but you can make some people that are really hard to put down with this rule. It is kind of fun. Crunchy crits, a lot of people use this one. If you crit, you're going to get maximum damage on one roll of the dice and then an additional dice. Pretty straightforward. So your crit will never be less damage than a normal hit. This is just for players. Monsters don't do this, so kind of a little advantage for you guys. You can make a crit fishing build and get a little bit more out of it. And if you run a 2014 sheet, this is how you would change your weapons to employ that rule. Just change your crit section into the maximum value or whatever your base weapon dice is. I'm not sure how to do it on 2014 24, I'll look into it. Probably post another image here. All right, 16, Dark Vision nerf. Oh, this is a big one. Most people don't even pay any attention to Dark Vision. They don't give it any mind. It's so readily available that it's hand waved. Nobody uses the perception disadvantage thing. Nobody really even checks the radius. Everybody's just got night vision goggles and lighting and stuff is ignored. I don't do that. Um, I like using darkness when it's appropriate. Not every dungeon's going to be dark and dank and unlit. But for the ones that are, I don't want to make it just everybody's got night vision goggles except for poor old humans. Like, no. So unless you're one of these listed races or another race that's like from the Underdark or the Shadowfell and has a really good reason to have dark vision, you don't have dark vision. So you can go pick up an extra skill, language, or tool to make up for losing dark vision if your base race had it. Otherwise, you need to take a darkness-centric subclass. You need to play one of these specific races. You need to use the light spell, torches, lanterns, whatever else. If you walk into darkness, it's actually going to be an obstacle, something you have to overcome instead of just being hand-waved away. So that makes it a little bit more exciting and tense, kind of scary dungeon crawling when you can't actually see everything. 17, this one is a big one and kind of complicated. The 21 AC rule. When you get to 21 armor class, all other increases to armor class, be they permanent or temporary from magic or whatever else, only give you half a point. So basically, you need 2 points to get to the next level of armor class. So if you have 21 armor class and you cast Shield of Faith, you go to 22 armor class. If you have 22 armor class and you cast Shield, you get 24 armor class instead of 27, 28. This rule expires when you hit character level 11, tier 3. Then you can build your AC however you want. You can get up as high as you like. This is mainly my homebrew nerf / solution to the shield spell, but also just because of how the game works, the modern game, this influx of new feats, subclasses, races, whatever. Everybody and their brother has or can get access to shields and heavy armor really easily, even so-called squishy casters, which, you know, Blade Singer is probably the tankiest class in the game, and it throws the balance off a little bit. And rather than just ban the shield spell, which a lot of people do, I find this is a better solution. So if you actually are a squishy wizard with 14 armor class, you can use shield like it's meant to be used. It'll bring you up to 19 and no harm, no foul. If you're a 24 AC paladin who, took a dip or a magic initiate feat or whatever to get shield, it's not going to pump you into the 30s for a 1-level spell slot or anything else, because a vast majority of stuff that increases your armor class are very early level features. It's either your armor proficiency, your racial bonus, level 1 spells, level 1, 2, or 3 class features. So you can make a character that was maybe level 4 with a 1-level dip in some other class, get up into the 24, 25 AC range, and nothing is going to hit you at that range, which is cool for the player, like they're invincible, but it's just really front-loaded armor class increases. If you look like over the classes, there's almost nothing that gives you additional armor class at level 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? 5th level spells, 6th level spells. They're past it. It's all meant to be pumped up at level 1, which I thought was strange game design, I guess. So my 21 AC rule is kind of the counteract to that. 21 is really good. That's plate and a shield plus another +1 for a level 1, 2, 3 character. And it doesn't mean you can't get up to the 24, 25, 26 AC, because again, I have all this additional stuff, new magic items, feats, spells, whatever else. You have a lot more options and a lot easier ways to pump up your AC if you still want to build that super tanky character. But it keeps them from getting to like the 30 and 40 range at level 5, 6, Once you get to tier 3, monsters start getting double-digit hit bonuses and stuff. Then it balances out. And if you want to pump your AC to 45, go right ahead. All right, so anyway. Initiative changes if you have advantage on initiative or you get an extra dice on initiative or something else. Just go ahead into your character sheet and change it to a flat bonus because I use the group initiative. Like I'll just put a selection box over everybody in the map, roll initiative for everybody all at once. It's faster and it doesn't play well with dice or advantage or anything like that. It just goes flat numbers. So, and I also keep initiative hidden for the first round of combat. So you'll see what you rolled, but you won't know where you landed in the order. Like you won't see what the monsters rolled, and I keep the turn order kind of concealed for the first round. So you won't necessarily know, oh, okay, that guy's going next. Everybody shoot him in the face. um, you'll know after the first round, but I like to keep that unpredictable, um, exciting, like, oh, what's going to happen, who's going to go next, for at least the first round until things settle down. Grapple buff. If you grapple with two hands free, no shield, no weapons, and you grapple a spellcaster that is the same size as you, doesn't have extra arms or like some kind of telepathic spell casting ability like a mind flare or whatever, you can bear hug them and keep them from doing their somatic components. So buffs monk builds, barbarians, any kind of grapple build a little bit. You have some more versatility against spellcasters. Although I think Misty Step is still just verbal, so you're gonna watch out for that. Attunement slots, instead of just 3, you're gonna have matching your proficiency bonus. So they start at 2, but scale all the way up to 6. Legendary and artifact items cost 2 slots though, so you can still only have like 3 of those maximum. But 3 legendary items is plenty. Artificers still get their regular boosts to attunement slots. I think they get +2 at level 20, and that's fine. So they would have 8 in total. You have a ton of magic items if you're an artificer. Healing, dying, and potion is its own separate section. We'll get into that later. Then you've got the rules of cool, things that just make the game a little bit more cinematic and exciting. Heroic sacrifice. Basically, if there's something you need to do, but you can't do it in the rules, you can ask me to bend the rules a little bit, and I might let you do it, but it's going to cost you something. Maybe it costs you some gold, maybe it costs you some damage, maybe it gives you disadvantage next turn or next combat or some exhaustion. Or if you're really, really, really trying to stretch the rules, you might even have to lose character levels or even die. But I may let you do something extraordinary, even though it's not on your character sheet. But only in times where it's called for. Like, you can't just walk into a combat against some goblins and you're already steamrolling and be like, oh, can I kill them all in one hit? No. But if your backs are to the wall and you don't have any other choice and things are desperate, you could start to get a little creative with what you want to do. That also falls into the badass last stand rule. If your character dies, actually dies, not just is downed, I will give you, and well, not necessarily. Like if you get disintegrated or power word killed or like insta deathed, something that you know, your body doesn't exist anymore, this doesn't count. But if you're, just killed by a sword or you're down on the ground bleeding out, you fail your last death save, I will give you a turn right away. Whether it's right in the middle of a monster's turn, their turn will stop, your turn will start, and you could take one final turn doing whatever you want. You could kind of combine it with this heroic sacrifice to bend the rules of the game and do something kind of cool, give your allies a chance to escape or strike back against the monster that killed you. Just, go out like a badass. You're still gonna die. You can't heal yourself or, cast Death Ward or take a potion or anything. It's not gonna matter. You're already dead, technically. This is just your last surge of strength to allow you to do something cool. 1 in a million rule. If you roll 2 20s when you have disadvantage on an attack roll, I'll let you just behead the monster. You just kill it right then and there. And conversely, if you have advantage and you roll 2 1s, I'm probably going to make something bad happen. This is sort of the only way I do critical fumbles, but even then, it's not like 100% of the time, and it really depends on the situation. Um, Resting. All right, this is another longer one. You don't do rest in terms of sleeping. Um, Always found that disconnect between the passage of time and the recovery of resources. Sometimes it doesn't match up. Sometimes you don't have a reason to um, deny a rest, like tactically going into the dungeon, fighting one goblin, retreating, taking a nap, getting all your resources back, coming back, fighting another goblin. Repeat forever is technically the smart thing to do. And while there's a lot of ways as DM we could say, oh no, you can't do that, sometimes those ham-fisted ways of stopping you don't really make sense. There can't always be a ticking time bomb or some kind of reason why, oh yeah, you can't just, board up this room and get all your spell slots back. Um, so I don't use sleeping or stopping as resource recovery. Instead, you have the potions of rest, which you drink them. After a minute or two, they take effect, and you get the benefits of a rest. So you can go back to town, sleep as long as you want, do whatever, doesn't matter. You're not going to get your hit points back. You're not going to get your spell slots back. The potion of rest kind of gives me some control over how many encounters you need to face before you get your spell slots back, which is where the ingrained difficulty of the game is supposed to come from. If a party's at full power, they can beat anything. So you could read this. It's a little bit more in depth, but that's kind of how it works. It also allows us to change the pace of adventures. Like, say there was some kind of big siege, and you had like one encounter every day or two. We could still treat that as kind of the battle of attrition. Or if you're in the climax of the campaign, you're in the big bad guy's fortress, and you're going to fight semi-boss after semi-boss after semi-boss, and then go fight him right away. And it's like a bunch of super hard encounters. I can just give you more potions of rest, and therefore, even though 1 hour of in-game time is passing, you can still get that resource recovery you need to kind of push through those epic boss rush type climactic encounters. I've used this like for 3 or 4 of the 5 games, and it's been a better system, I think, than napping. Um, so it might seem confusing, but just give it a try. I think you'll like it. Healing, Death, and Dying. Um, some kind of buffs, nerfs, and changes to healing. I wanted to make healing word like yo-yo healing when guys are at 0 less effective, and also make in combat like, oh man, the barbarian's really hurt. Let me go use my action to do cure wounds on him. More powerful. Some people like that healer fantasy, playing the white mage in the MMO or whatever. You want to just stand back and keep the tank up as he's getting blasted. I wanted to facilitate that as being a little bit more possible while making the healing word spam yo-yo. Oh, guy got a boulder dropped on him, healing word. Oh, he got hit by a lightning bolt and he's dead, healing word. Oh, he got dropped off a cliff from 900 feet, don't worry, healing word. I got you, buddy. You're good. So that's a little bit harder to do. So the buff is invigoration. If you use a spell slot on somebody while they're still standing, at half health or whatever, they'll get whatever hit points you heal them, and they'll get temporary hit points equal to the amounts you heal them. So if you heal them for 20, they get 20 regular hit points, and then 20 temporary hit points on top of that. Basically doubling the effectiveness of your healing, which wizards already doubled by, buffing the healing spells. So you can actually stand in the back, cast healing spells on people in your party, and that'd be a viable and fun and effective use of your action economy and in the battle itself. The temporary hit points only last for like a turn, so it doesn't help to pre-heal or do out of combat healing. It's really meant for in the thick of things, to give your spells a little more oomph. And the nerf is negative XP, or negative XP, negative HP, to counteract that healing word yo-yo thing. Get 10 HP, somebody hits you for 20, you go down to -10, and you're bleeding and dying, making death saves just like normal. Except in order to get back up, you need 11 points of healing. You got to get back to that 1 hit point to get back up. So the little, you know, paltry 4 hit points from Healing Word or a lesser healing potion or something might not get you up from getting a mountain dropped on your head. Um, could be there's some hits that can just take you out of it. Like, okay, you're at -58 hit points. You're not coming back in this battle, and that's realistic. I mean, some hits are so big that you can't just shrug them off with a first level spell. Um, so yeah, at the end of the combat, if you're still at -58, but your party wins, you just go back to 0, and they can pick you up with the Healing Word again if they want. And you still stabilize if you get healed while you're at negative whatever. Um, so you're not any more likely to die, but it just keeps you from popping up like a groundhog all the time. All right, Dying Resurrection kind of stole us a little bit from the Critical Role system of Resurrection, but I put my own little twist on it. It is tied into, you know, religion and the afterlife and whatever is appropriate for your character. So instead of just casting Raise Dead and you pop back up no problem, you have to bargain with whatever extra planar creature now commands your soul. If you were a religious character, you followed a deity, it would be that particular deity. If you're a warlock, it's going to be your patron. If you're agnostic, atheist character, whatever, it doesn't matter. Someone, somewhere, something is going to claim your soul. God of death or the god of orcs, whatever, if you were an orc. Whatever seems appropriate for me if you don't choose your own deity. Um, and then rolling that resurrection spell, which you can pay the party cleric once you get one. There's not one at the start. Again, not everything's unlocked at the beginning, but eventually there would be like a camp cleric at the camp that you can have cast these resurrections for you. But you have to go through this little ritual when you bring somebody back, and it could entwine you with a godly being. I don't make it cost any more money, and it still always succeeds. Like if you want to bring somebody back from life, back from the dead, you always can for the most part. Um, but sometimes I put a little twist in there, a little story hook, a diversion or something. The god might want something from you in order to do it. If you do okay, if you do really good on the ritual, they just get back up, no problem. If you do okay on it, then you have to bargain with the deity, and if you do badly on it, then it's not a bargain, it's a pact. Um, the deity will make their list of demands, and since the players have to offer up a part of their own souls to initiate that resurrection ritual, they really don't have the option of saying no. So that adds a little bit more, like I said, a little more drama and intrigue and excitement to raising people from the dead. Because if it was as easy as just finding a little diamond, you have to think, why would anybody in the world be dead? Like, why would anybody ever stay dead? Death has no meaning, and there's no tragedy in loss because a little diamond, anybody can come back. Rich people would literally never die. It would death would be just for the poors. So adding this little twist makes it more thematic, I think. Healing potions. There's a potion tolerance. Everybody has a potion tolerance, which is your proficiency bonus ×3 while you're in the dungeon. It's because in the past, like healing potions themselves, the normal healing potions are kind of cheap. Gold is kind of plentiful, and you don't have a lot to do with it. So players would just be like, I want to go buy 436 healing potions. And they go down in the dungeon, and as they're getting smashed for thousands of damage, they're just, knocking back these potions and by the dozens to wean it off and become functionally immortal. I thought that was a little silly, so I implemented this tolerance feature. Whereas after your proficiency bonus ×3, so 6 to start, then 9 for tier 2. You're not going to get any benefit out of those potions. If you still desperately need healing, if like you have no party healer and potions are your main way of keeping yourself up, I would say buy better healing potions instead of just, scores and scores of the cheap ones. Buy the better ones, and you can replicate that effect, even though it's going to cost you a little bit more. Spell changes. I try my best not to ban or nerf anything out of the ground, but in a game that's actually intended to go to level 20, it has in the past. It's simply necessary. Like tier 4 and 5 D&D doesn't work out of the book the way it's written. Spells are way too powerful. They're way too broad and overarching, and there's no way to balance them or to prepare for them or to run a game with 9th level spellcasters. So some stuff has to be done. Resurrection, as previously mentioned, is out. Like players cannot add resurrection, true resurrection, raise dead to their spell lists. Like you just don't have access to those spells. NPCs have them. You might find scrolls that have them. You can, do those rituals when it's appropriate, but it's not something you can put on your spell list and just cast whenever you want. You have to kind of go through the system to bring somebody back from the dead. Long range teleportation is out because it kind of breaks the game. Planar shift, anything like that, is all out. Getting to the bottom of the dungeon, figuring out the mystery, and physically traveling space is most of what adventuring is when you when you boil it right down to it. Like think, Lord of the Rings or whatever else. Teleport. It's great when you don't hand wave travel. NPCs could still offer you traveling services and stuff. There might still be teleportation magic in the world. Again, it's just like resurrection. You can't add it to your spell lists. So when it's plot appropriate and necessary, teleportation could be introduced, but you can't do it at will. And I mean, honestly, it's just a nightmare to prepare for. The players can go wherever they want, whenever they want. It means I have to have every possible thing prepared, and I'm just too lazy for that, to be completely honest with you. So you're gonna have to walk. Sorry. Short range teleportation's okay. Misty Step, Dimension Door, anything that's like battle-based teleportation is all right. But going hundreds of miles is out. Can't do that. Resting spells are out because they don't work with the potions of rest, and it's just unnecessary to bog the game down, kind of thing. So, Tiny Hut, Magnificent Mansion, whatever else. I mean, technically, you can still take them. They're just not going to do you any good, right? You can go take a little time out for a while, but why? Um, so don't even bother. Scrying and divination kind of falls into the same category as teleportation. I'd limit it to localized area. You can't be like, oh, what's the final boss doing right now? Scrying. I'll just ask my god. What's the solution to the grand mystery of the whole campaign? Fill me in. I'll just roll this dice. No, can't do it. Sorry. You can scry the floor you're on. You can get some information. You can use your spells appropriately, but you cannot skip to the end of the whole campaign. Don't let you do it. These are the spells that I rebalanced. They were just so overpowered that they couldn't be left alone. Silvery Barbs only works on a creature once a day, so you can't nerf a boss into oblivion by having like 3 or 4 spellcasters with Silvery Barbs that just turn all of his hits into misses, or force him to fail all his saving throws. You can force him to reroll 1, but not 57 with first level spell slots. Simulacrum just kind of did what Wizards should have done and took away all the loopholes for Simulacrum. You can never have more than one. I don't care if you wish for them, or if you use a magic item, or if you get your familiar to cast it for you, or whatever the fuck else crazy loophole. Doesn't work. Only one ever, and I nerfed that one. He can't cast more than 6 level spells, and his hit points are halved to keep you from like duplicating all the barbarians and fighters and having a 12-person party. That gets a little out of hand. Conjure Minor Elemental is 24, is probably the most unbalanced pure damage spell they released in the update. But really, it's only a problem when you start talking about dips, multi-class builds, gishes, and stuff like that. Like the Valor Bard, Warlock dip, stuff like that. It all kind of breaks it. On a regular wizard or druid that's supposed to have it, it's supposed to have it on their spell list, it's not so bad. Um, so I just kind of restricted that as a single class spell only. You can't be a multi-class, you can't dip it, you can't grab it with magical secrets and make your crazy Valor Bards. It only works for pure druids and wizards. It's still pretty strong on Blade Singers, but not like crazy 46 attacks per turn strong. So Call Lightning, a little bit of buff, so you can use it inside. Just because it's a dungeon run, you're going to be inside most of the time. Go ahead, use your Call Lightning. Sickening Radiance tops out at 3 levels of exhaustion. Just too easy, I guess. As a boss killer, as an everything killer. You know, the old Wall of Force, Sickening Radiance combo. I capped most of the spells. Like you're going to see later, there's a lot of homebrew spells that inflict exhaustion. Kind of cap them at 3 or 4. And before you get to that can't move and instantly die level. I mean, in 3 levels of exhaustion is still crippling. With the new 2024 rules, that means -6 on all of their rolls. They're going to be hammered into the ground. And Sickening Radiance still does damage for 10 minutes. I mean, it's a great spell. But you can't just murder everything in the universe with it. Gift of Alacrity, restricted to Chronergy Wizards, who themselves are a 2-point class because they're so brokenly overpowered. It's not the worst spell in the world, but it's just too abusable. And again, it's level 1 Magic Initiate. It's too strong for like rogues and fighters and stuff. They really shouldn't have this spell. So Chronergy Wizard only, or some of the time themed. There's like a time themed sorcerer, time themed bard, I think. So any kind of time bending type of subclass, you can go ahead and pick this up. Otherwise, you know, I don't let you grope Mage Hand all over the universe and solve every problem. You either have to be really clever and specific in what you're doing, or you're just going to have to go do it yourself. So going back to like my treasure checks with those 4 mysterious statues and their magical aura, you cannot stand in the doorway and grope your Mage Hand over everything and determine whether or not it's trapped. You're going to have to get in there and get your own hands dirty. Sorry, but it was too much of a shortcut. It solved too many problems with too little thinking, you know. And in a world where magic exists, I think trap designers would be able to account for a cantrip. And even though I might not be able to think up like why your Mage Hand doesn't work, just assume that whatever devious creatures created those traps, they came up with a way to neutralize your Mage Hand. So yeah, if you're a Arcane Trickster and you got the upgraded Mage Hand, you can grope away and use your Mage Hand to do whatever, because that's kind of their whole shtick. But just a regular wizard, I kind of nerf Mage Hand a little bit. Wall 4 and Force Cage needed a nerf. The fact that they didn't get one is ridiculous. According to the updated spells for 2024, Wall of Force is probably the single most broken spell in the game. Nobody likes it when the players get stuck inside of Wall of Force. Well, it's the same amount of fun as a DM to get all of your monsters trapped in a cage and every encounter just neutered into the ground. So these need a way to be defeated, and they now have a way. They have hit points. The big bad monster can bash them down. You can trap wolves and skeletons and whatever crappy monsters in there. It's immune to regular weapon damage, so feel free to trap, little minions in there. But it's no longer a boss killer. Guidance, just a change to guidance, not really a nerf or a buff. Just kind of wanted to reduce the don't forget your guidance. Hey, you got guidance. Hey, DM, can I roll a D4 for guidance? Ooh, can I add guidance to that? Guidance, right? Want to keep the game moving. Less spam. Stop pestering your god for guidance every time you tie your shoes or brush your teeth. It's kind of replace enhance ability. It's more of a precasting buff spell. You're gonna pick one skill or one ability set of skill, cast it at the end of a rest, and then everybody's gonna get the little guidance buff built in, and we don't have to constantly be rolling extra dice or oh, don't forget your guidance. You can just add that +3. It's pretty easy for me to just calculate it in my head, whatever. And it forces you guys to think on your feet and kind of think, well, what are you going to do coming up? Are you doing a stealthy infiltration mission? You can pick Dex. If you're doing wilderness exploration, you could do Wisdom for nature and survival and all that stuff. So, yeah, it's a little less, just spammy, I guess. And then Section 7 is all the rebalancing and stuff to the 1,500 new spells added to the game. It looks like a long list, but when you consider the fact that they added 1,500 spells, it's actually a pretty short list of changes. I'm not going to go over all of these ones individually, but some of these spells either didn't fit with the homebrew rules, didn't fit the 2024 rules, they were written poorly, or they were just horrifically overbalanced, overtuned. So you could read this list if you're going to add those Tomy Heroes classes. And you want these spells, make sure you consult this list before you add any of those TOH spells to your sheet because they might not work the way you think. Especially if you go, oh man, this is the most powerful thing I've ever seen. Yeah, and chances are it got toned down a little bit. Let's see, and that's it. That's it for the homebrew changes. Now we'll just go to the new stuff. This is all the extra content that's been added into the game, or, well, a good deal of it anyway. You can check out these links here to look at all the third-party subclasses that have been added in a nice, easy-to-read way. You don't have to hunt through the compendium. There's several for every class. The spellcasting characters have more because there was 2 books that focus on spellcasters instead of just the one for regular. But yeah, those are all in the game. They're all fairly balanced, even though they're all made for 2014. So you might have to adjust the level scaling a little bit, but they all work out pretty good, and they're pretty fun and expand the themes for your characters. Like I said, there's a couple of black powder centric subclasses in there if you want to make a blasty shooty guy. That's kind of fun, and lots of other stuff too. There's beer magic. That's always fun. People are usually pretty enthralled by that one. I added some new feats, either from the books themselves, and I wrote them out. Some of these are lifted from like Solasta, Unfinished Business. Some of these are just from homebrew sources or wherever else. But most of them are pretty good, fairly balanced. None of them are too strong. And it just gives you, some more ways to build your character, stretch it out, do some new things, specialize in different ways. Yeah, good stuff here. Not going to go over all of those, but lots of fun ones. And get like a power attack feature added to everybody. Where is it? Swing for the fences. Where's that one? Oh. I know a lot of people are upset about the, there it is. A lot of people are upset about the +5 or -5, +10 thing being ripped away from crossbow expert and, or sharpshooter rather, and great weapon master. So this is sort of a replacement for that. You can get those big power attacks and other stuff. More mastery feats for like different type of weapons, like hoplite, powers up the shield a little bit, fell-handed, good stuff. Alternate class abilities. All right, this one I will go over one at a time. These are little buffs, homebrew changes, suggestions that other players had, or they wanted to play their characters in a different way. And I sort of just allowed it, built this up over the many iterations of the campaign to get people the freedom to play the character they want to play. So artificers can use acid alchemist fires or grenades basically as their basic weapon. Not super overpowered like 10d10 ones or anything, but just the little basic ones that, 2d4, 2d6. It's thematic, it's fun, it gives them some extra utility to do some like on-demand splash damage, and it just fits, I think, the basic character um, concept of an artificer. You're throwing bombs, you cook up a little thing and you throw it at people. So yeah, barbarians give barbarians a offensive focused use of rage. Some barbarians, don't want to be tanks. They don't care about resistance and you know super high armor class. They just want to kill shit real good. So with Rampage here, you triple your rage damage bonus and get rid of your resistances. So if you just want to go all out offense, it's Barbarian that gives you method to do it. Bards don't need any help. Clerics don't need any help. Druids, they don't really need any help either, but I gave them some fun changes to wild shape. You're going to be limited in your wild shapes at the beginning, and you have to grow it like a Pokemon collection by encountering new beasts out in the world. It kind of gives them a fun side quest, kind of like wizards collecting scrolls. You can go bird watching and collect all these new beast shapes. And with all the new monsters injected into the game, there's going to be a lot of beasts, and I do mean a lot. T-Rex and giant ape and whatever else, or whatever. I don't remember what the old, I think elephant or mammoth used to be like the tippy top of what you could wild shape into. That is no longer true. They're now very effective, diverse, and interesting animals at all levels. So that collection mini game is kind of fun. You can also summon. You have like which I think Tasha's did something kind of like this. They just give you Find Familiar, but I changed it up, buffed it a little bit, so now you can summon anything that you can turn into. So if you can turn into a lion once you're level, 100, I guess, basically for non-druid, because this doesn't carry over to moon druids. It's only for non-moon druids who can only really use their wild shape for like scouting or utility or fluff purposes, or usually they expend those to charge some other feature. Now you can get a little minion down to the battlefield, maybe a mount, you can get a horse or something. Or you can just have a little bird friend that you talk to. I don't know, whatever. Seems kind of druidy to me, so. The Stronk, everybody loves the Stronk. Not everybody wants to be, Jackie Chan or Jet Li, mystical, kung fu, Eastern character. Sometimes you want to be a big, fat, bald guy with a goatee who just pummels people with his massive fists. So, the Stronk, strength-based monk. You don't have to do dex. You can do strength, unarmored defense, and strength, slow fall, and strength, deflect blows, and all that fun stuff. It's not overpowered. You're still not using weapons. Monks don't use armor, and strength is an undervalued stat anyway. It just makes for more diverse and thematic builds. Although the pugilist, and there's a handful of barbarians like the Beast and I think Thorn's barbarian. If you want to be an unarmed fist fighting brute, you could look into the pugilist and those barbarian subclasses. They apply to unarmed damage. So if you want to hit people with your hands but you don't want to be a monk, those are some options too. Paladin's no big deal, but I give you a deity if you want one. You can pledge to a deity instead of an oath, taking all the same features as an oath and gameplay mechanics, but just going back to that kind of old school root of the paladin where they are holy warriors themselves. Ranger, good luck with you. I got nothing for you. Wizards has tried 20 times. Everybody and their mother has tried to homebrew it. I don't know if this class can be fixed. I don't know what it's supposed to be or what people want from it. If you think you found a solution somewhere that you like, feel free to send it to me and see if you can make it work. Maybe you like the basic ranger and you want to just give. Gloomstalker is still super powerful, so I don't think they have a power issue so much as they just don't feel right to play a lot of times. Rogue. All right, this one is basically because I nerfed the Rogue a lot with my homebrew rulings like movement speed and trap interaction and all this other stuff. It all tended to step on the Rogue's toes, so I gave them what they desperately lacked, and that's extra attack. At level 6, instead of expertise, you can take extra attack, which most rogues try to multi-class or dip for or just dual wield so they can get that extra attack. They needed it, and this kind of makes up for all the other nerfs that I've imposed on them, incidentally. Sorcerers get their subclass spells known because some subclasses give you more spells, some subclasses don't. So this levels the playing field and just lets all subclasses get those extra spells known. Two more really cool meta magic features that I stole from Celasta. One is widen spells, so you can make those cubes and emanations and area effects bigger. If you want to fireball even more things, or have that sickening radiance, take up a football field. Widen spell is pretty good. And then mimic spell is a cool way for sorcerers to amplify their versatility a little bit, and it feeds into their class identity. They're kind of inherent magical talent thing. They don't need to study things. They can just inherently do it. So you can basically see a spell, either an allied spell or from an enemy, and make a little check, spend some sorcery points, and add that one to your spell list. But it's only one at a time. If you ever mimic something else, you lose what you used to know. So this is pretty cool to coordinate with your parties, make some good strategies, or just steal cure wounds from the cleric, or um, spirit guardians, which is a pain in the butt. That's a pain in the butt, but it works. Why have one spirit guardian when you can have two? The quirks. I highly recommend picking quirk again if you're one of those longtime players that have kind of dried yourself out and you're a little bored with the basic character building. Quirks are another layer on top of that. These aren't mandatory, but they're free. You don't have to pay one of your character build points when you make your character. You can just roll a d40 and get one of these. Most of them come with some kind of downside, but most of the really impactful ones also have an opt-out feature. Like you can do something to stop using it, or you could just choose not to use it, or something like that. So you're not locked in, for the most part, to some kind of detriment or penalty, unless it's relatively minor, like the half giant one. Dwarves are going to have advantage against you, but he counts large, so that's pretty fun. Yeah, you roll these randomly, although there is a character build point to select one specifically. So if you have a build in mind, there's pretty much a trait for every kind of character: skill monkeys, melees, ranged, spellcasters, healers, utility people, buffers, controllers, whatever it is. Um, there's probably at least one quirk that will lean into that playstyle. So something to consider when you're making your character. And that is pretty much it. This has been a longer video. Thanks for sticking with me. But I figured I would go down and give you guys the explanation as to who, what, why, when, and where I've changed the game in the way that I've done. And hopefully you'll enjoy these changes and it'll promote a more exciting and engaging and interesting tabletop experience. All right. Thanks. Talk to you later.